Yep.
And then if you'd like to kick it off, please go ahead.
Yep.
And let me introduce Kevin first. Kevin is our assistant secretary, so he works very closely with Roy, who is our chapter secretary. These guys are on the front lines of a lot of our assignments as it relates to varsity, chains, clocks, and then they are kind of the backstop for all of our satellite secretaries who assign all the sub-varsity games. So both important roles. Kevin, I'll kick it off to you.
Perfect. All right. I know some of you guys that are on here, I kind of looked at the participant list. I know when we did the orientation, we were in person. We had asked some of you guys, and I think in a couple other classes after that, if you're interested in being a cruise boxman, to go ahead and send Rory that information so I get it. I know that we've got a couple people that have already been assigned the cruise. And I saw Jeff Toker's on the line. I know he's with Jeff Holt's crew. I thought I saw Jordan. I'm going to assume it's De Silva, who's with Daryl Cardell's crew. So some of those guys have already been assigned. My list, and I haven't gotten a chance to call people exact out yet for this, but is Darius Mitchell on?
Well, he's muted, so he may not be able to speak.
Okay.
Let me look and see.
Well, let me just.
It doesn't look like there's a Darius in the participant list.
Yeah, but I know there's a bunch of iPhones and everything else, so
Yeah,
I
if
can
you
never
are
really
Darius,
tell.
send a chat to us and we'll respond to you.
Yep. Or Brian Kinney, Regan, if I pronounced that correctly, Heddens, Brandon Lewis, or Brian Brandt. I know I've got you on a list that I had sent out to crew chiefs about 2 weeks ago that you were still looking for that. I just haven't got any information back if any of you guys have been picked up by crew chiefs. And if not, that's fine. It takes a little while. We got about half the crews that have actually picked up crew chiefs. But if somebody has been picked up, I'd like that information. I can get you assigned in as the chain one, which is typically the box person for the crew, and get that taken care of.
Yeah, what Kevin's talking about is our Boxman program. So I highly encourage you to take advantage of what he's talking about because it's a great opportunity for mentorship your first year.
Exactly. And some of the guys come back with the same crews on the second year also. So there's a lot of benefits for it. You get to stay with the same crew, you get to learn, you get to work with some of the guys on the crew in sub-varsity games, depending on your situation. So if you're interested in it, like I said, shoot an email to Rory for that, and I'll get it, and I will get an email back out to the crew chiefs probably about midweek to let people know who's still available and to get picked up for that. Like I said, right now we're I think about 22 of the 53 crews have boxmen already from either new members or other people that are in their second year type of thing. So that's step one.
Yeah, and just for you folks, he's talking to send an email to Rory. He's talking about Rory Bernard, who is on now and is our chapter secretary. I put his email address, in case you don't know it, into the chat window.
Perfect.
And did you see the message from Matt? Matt Stevens says he is a boxman for Nat Maxim's crew.
Okay, I knew Nat was having to get one or two, so let me get that.
Rory, can you hear us?
I can.
All right. Well, certainly chime in as needed.
I'll let Kevin finish.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Rory. All right, so now I'm going to go and share. Share the desktop. All right, so the second thing that I'm going to share here, and since I'm just on one monitor, somebody let me know that you kind of see there's like a little grid here.
You're good, Kevin.
Okay. So what I've developed here, in short, I've got about, I'm going to say it's probably close to many hundreds, maybe 1,000 total assignments that I'm going to try and knock out probably over the next 14 to 20 days. And these are all for a chain assignments. So what I've done to help you guys kind of understand where things are and where stadiums are he's kind of put everything into a grid. So the north-south line is I-30. I think everybody, if you're not familiar with the Dallas area, if you're just new here, I think that's a pretty easy line to understand. Anything north of I-30 is to the north. Everything to the south is to the south, or below it is to the south. And then the east-west line is I-35, and then going up the North Texas Tollway, basically all the way from Italy, if you will, which we service, and going all the way up to Sherman. So you can kind of see the various schools or school districts that are in each one of those grids. So for an example, the Irving ISD has one stadium, but they have 3 teams. So what I'd like people to do, if you're interested in working chains, if you're not a box person and you want to go ahead and work chains, what I would like you to do is send an email to my email address down here, kevinschmidt00@gmail.com. And then obviously in the email, put your name. And what I mean by quadrant is just put Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, or you could put all 4 if you don't care where you're working, and I can assign you anywhere. But if you do have any preferences, like in Q1 or Q2, Q3, or Q4, put in like Plano ISD, Denison, Plano ISD, Garland ISD. When I have the ISDs in here, the ISDs have multiple stadiums. So for like Plano, there's 2 stadiums. There's a Clark Stadium, which is basically Plano. There's Kimbrough Stadium, which is actually in Murphy. Frisco's got 3 stadiums. Garland's got 2. Richardson's got 2. Rockwall has 1, but 2 teams. And then the Dallas ISD, depending on the 8 stadiums where you are, they kind of fit into each one of these quadrants. So you can kind of get a feel for that and figure out what you want to do for that. So
Hey,
Dallas,
Kevin, question
yep,
for you.
Yep.
Am I missing it? Or has McKinney pulled all of their chain stuff into their own IST employees?
They have. They did not use chain assignments last year at all.
Okay.
So
gotcha. Okay.
So our basis is off
Yeah,
of
Bruce,
what they did last
McKinney
year.
uses kids at the schools.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. I know they used to use us, so that's what I was curious about. But thank you for clarifying.
Yep. So the last thing that I have is the Dallas ISD is also an italicized, and the reason for that is they are only going to require 1 chain person, and they're going to have 2 other DISD type employees or other employees that are going to work that. So that kind of helps us out a little bit from a resource standpoint. Everything else that's listed needs at least 3 chain people, and typically most of the crews might have a boxman, so that's going to be at least 1 position. Some crews will have maybe 2 people that they want to have on the chains, like the previous year box person and so forth. So we'll kind of reserve spots for them. But like I said, there's still going to be plenty of spots, plenty of opportunities to do anything. So if anybody has any questions, hit up in the chat and we'll kind of see if there's anything in there from this. If it's clear enough, if it's not, we can kind of
Looks
discuss.
like we had a question, but you answered it. And I just want to expand because we might have some brand new folks on tonight. So what Kevin and Roy and myself are talking about is these are chain crews that will work varsity games. We're not talking middle school games. These are paid assignments. You will get money. You'll make money. And as a chapter, we prefer to have our officials working on the chains with our crews because it's, first of all, it's a learning experience for you, and we have a certain trust factor in you too. So I would encourage anybody who can, first and foremost, be a boxman. You'll be with that varsity crew working the down box on the chains wherever we service. And if not, you're still working on the chains. You're getting to see varsity crews at stadiums we service. It's a great experience and you get paid for it. Highly encourage you guys to contact Roy and Kevin if you're interested in these because there's nothing more frustrating than to a varsity crew when we show up and we got to try to find a chain crew member, and then we end up pulling somebody from the stands, and they, have never done it before. So anyway, if you're interested,
Just an add on to that, and I'll say this from experience. a chain crew can make a good or bad chain crew can make or break a game.
Absolutely.
So your importance should not be understated.
Yeah, as a head linesman, I tell the chain crew, you are my last line of defense. We don't want to ever be on the front lines, but you can be a game saver, to Roy's point.
100%.
Anybody has any questions, put it in the chat box, and I know any of us three can answer it for you. Looks like they wanted to know Kevin's email address is 00, not the letters
Correct.
O.
Yep,
But
it's 00. Correct. Yep.
Good question, because that would make a difference.
All right, Kevin, you good? You got anything else?
I don't have anything else. I'm all set. So, Rory, it's all yours.
Brian T. I will answer your question before I get started. It's your first year. What will be best for you? I will say that it is an invaluable experience to join a chain crew and look at varsity football. That is probably one of the more difficult. I shouldn't say difficult. That's probably one of the better ways to learn the game and learn the process. You see a lot of good football. You see some bad football too. I won't lie, but you see a lot of good football, more good than bad, and you see a lot of good mechanics from a lot of good varsity officials and a lot of veteran officials that have been in the chapter for a long time. So it's a really good way to get some experience. Really good way to see some good football. Really good way to kind of be a part of the chapter. So I hope that answers your question.
And one of the other big things that, especially for first, second, third year guys, and you get to see the speed of the game versus some of the sub varsity stuff you'll see. So you will learn it'll help you make decisions working sub varsity games if you're really working the chains and paying and kind of mentally doing the mental reps, not necessarily the mental / and physical reps of each snap. So those mental snaps are very important. You're basically 2 steps away from the field, so you can really work as a chain crew member to get yourself mentally prepared and to be ready to get on the field.
So, all right, real quick, I really don't want to take up too much of Bruce's time. I know he's done a really good job with you guys, and just Bruce is a excellent trainer, and we're really honored to have him take this class over. Just a few things, and I know he's probably hit on a few of these things. I just really wanted to kind of reiterate them. Don't forget, guys, every person that talks to you, every veteran that speaks to you, they've all been in your chair. Maybe not in front of the computer screen, but they've absolutely been in a new members class, and just kind of learning this business, learning this game, learning how this thing goes. So I really want you guys to understand that this process has to start somewhere. And where you're starting now is the perfect place to start. We have a lot of people who come in after this, and quite frankly, they're behind the 8 ball because they have not had the opportunity to go through this training. So thank you all for being here. The biggest thing that I wanted to hit on, and this is just coming from a secretary's perspective, you have to pay your dues. You have to pay your dues. If your dues have not been paid, you will not be able to officiate games. Those dues that need to be paid are your TASO dues, which is TASO.org. I'm sure Bruce has went over some of this, and he'll probably go over it again ad nauseum. But TASO.org if you need to pay your dues. DFOA.com if you need to pay your your chapter dues. Both of those dues, I believe TASO is $40. Is that correct, Bruce?
That is correct. New members are $40. Yep.
And it's $65 for DFOA.
Correct.
After those dues are paid, the last thing probably the most important thing that you all need to do is you need to go to reftown.com. You need to register with the DFOA. You cannot work games if you don't register with DFOA. You won't be able to get meeting notices and important messages that are sent out to the chapter if you don't register with the DFOA. So it's important that you take care of those small things in order to be able to work these games, to be able to pull these chains, to be able to be a contributing member of this chapter. So it's really, really important that you do that. If you have done some of those things in kind of odd orders, I'll give one example. If you've signed up for RefTown, but you haven't paid any dues, you're not going to be approved in RefTown because you haven't paid any dues. Now, I know that some have probably maybe slipped through, but if you haven't paid any dues, I'm not going to be approving you in RefTown because I need those dues paid before you even start getting assignments. And once you're actually opened up in RefTown, you'll start getting assignments. What I would hate to have happen is for you to get an assignment and then you haven't paid any dues. Just because we're going to pull anybody who has not paid dues, you can't do those assignments. You can't work those assignments until all those dues, all those tests. That's the other thing I know Bruce has probably talked about. The test needs to be taken care of. They have a special new members test that you guys can do. So it's not as difficult, I don't think, as the regular test. I know Bruce is part of that test taking committee. Last but not least, and I know I see a couple people are on here talking. A couple people are saying they have assignments. It's really, really, really important as you get assignments throughout the chapter that you do everything that you can to make those assignments. Satellite secretaries they have a really difficult job in finding individuals to work games. So if you can't make a game, or if it's even a possibility that you might not be able to make a game, just tell that assigner, hey, I'm not going to be able to make that date. What really hurts our assigners a lot is at the last minute, hey, I can't make that assignment. And you may have known for a few weeks. Let them know as quickly as possible so we have the ability to put someone else into that game, and we have as much notice to find someone, because it's very, very difficult to find someone at 4:30 on a Tuesday or 4:30 on a Thursday to be able to find someone to work that assignment that you've given back at the last minute.
Yep, good advice, Roy.
Are there any questions about anything that I've said? Feel free to put it in the chat. Don't have a problem answering it. I don't want to take up too much of Bruce's time. If you guys have any questions, Bruce put my email address in the text box. Feel free, email me at any time. I know some of you guys are on here already have. I've talked to several of the people on here already as well, and I have no problem answering any questions that you might have. Box person duties might overlap accepted games. I would say that's going to be an interesting deal. So I'm assuming you're talking about like a Thursday night game. You may have a chain assignment on a Thursday night, and then you have a game on a Thursday afternoon or something like that. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what your name is, but I'll be honest with you. I'm only going to accept one of those assignments, because what happens if one of those games gets delayed? Then one of those is going to be screwed over. Or if you have maybe a JV game on a Thursday, a JV game is going to take at least an hour and a half. And if the JV game starts at 5:30, it's not going to be over with until 7. A varsity game on Thursday starts at 7, and that's not even including the drive that you have to go to get there. My opinion, and Bruce may have something different, pick one.
Roy, I think if it is the box person, that means they're assigned to the varsity crew. In that case, I would think their varsity.
They need to go with their varsity crew.
Would be the priority.
Go with their varsity crew.
I think your comment would apply to if you're just assigned to the chains, and work with the satellite secretary and Roy and Kevin to figure out where do you think you need to be. Just say, hey, I'm scheduled for 2. They probably already know it. If they missed it. Just let them know, hey, which one do you want me to do? And they'll give you the right answer.
Agreed. Thank you, Bruce.
You bet.
Bruce, that's a question for you. We're going to have any on-field training?
Yes. Stay tuned. We will. We're working with some of our satellite secretaries. We'll work with Kevin and Roy to set up some new member only scrimmages. which will occur, I guess we're probably about, what, 2 to 3 weeks out from those
So the
occurring?
scrimmage weekends are going to be the 13th and the 20th.
There you go. So
Those two Fridays. So what? And you tell me, Bruce, if we can probably talk offline, but
yeah.
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to have sessions on both of those dates.
Yeah, and I think we're also, Roy, David Lookett offered up some Richardson middle school practices that would like
Okay.
officials come out. We might use that venue as well. So, which is even great, guys. Those are great opportunities to get out and get on the field. And I know not everybody can make it because of time, but if you can, I highly encourage it. We did 3 or 4, or I think we did 3 in the spring, where folks who had already signed up kind of early got to get out with experienced officials standing behind them. There's no win-loss column on the line here, so this is the best place to come and apply what you've learned on rules so far, what you might know about mechanics, and then have experienced folks coaching you through and helping you out at every position. So it's just a invaluable experience. And here's the best part, guys: it's free. You don't have to pay a penny for this. Um, in a normal year, we will have TASO would have many clinics that would be on-field clinics, including us. We do charge for them, but there's also a lot more training in the classroom and then on the field. These scrimmages are free, and frankly, I think they're just as valuable. So we will keep you in the loop once we have firm dates, and we will send those blasts out and ask for people to sign up. And so my best advice on that is just stay tuned.
I'm all good, Bruce. That was all I had.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. Anything else?
Nothing more. We kind of covered the Boxman Thursday night thing. If you do have an assignment and you're a Boxman on a Thursday night, I haven't double dipped you anywhere. Usually what you will see from me is an email that'll come through RefTown to you and who your crew chief is and possibly the satellite secretary to get everything worked out. Once they release you, I will assign you to that game as the Boxman for that Thursday night varsity game. So
good stuff. Well, thanks again.
Bruce, I'm gonna hop off. But if you need anything, let me know.
Will do. I appreciate your
Thanks,
time.
guys.
Those are Kevin and Roy are 2 of the most important guys. Not that ever the guys aren't important in our chapter. So as you progress in your officiating career, I'm sure you guys will be intersecting with those guys quite a bit.
Yep, I'm going to jump off too, Bruce. So if you do need anything, just let me know. I've got a couple names for the 6-man, Dwayne Stanton, and I don't know. Hopefully Quincy's in RefTown. I didn't get a last name in there. If you want to throw that up in the chat, Quincy, I kind of grab that, and I will then hang up after I get that. So
okay, I'll find out for you.
Perfect.
Okay, I want to spend the first couple minutes to talk about, so we're getting closer. I'm getting lots of questions, and they're all good questions about, hey, I'm thinking about getting my uniform ready, and what do I need to buy? So I want to point everybody to the new members guide. So if you go to our website, and I'm going to share, sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit here. Won't let me open up a browser. Good old Ring Central strikes again. I'm going to try to share this. Yep, can't share, sorry. Ring Central is not letting me share anything. How do I fix this? Let's try this. Nope, that's not going to work. Apologize. Well, apparently I can't share a browser in Ring Central, so I'll just talk you through it. If you go to our website and you click on new officials info, see if it looks like it might have popped up now finally. Okay, if you click on DFOA.com and then come over to info, new officials information, it will put you here. If you click on the new members guide and then you open it up, it's going to open up this document. And this document is going to answer 99% of the most common questions. So if you come down here and click on uniforms, it's going to tell you everything you need to officiate games this year. Shirts, pants, shorts, what undershirt you wear, what kind of belt, what kind of hat, socks, shoes, whistles, lanyards, flags, bean bags, chain clips, writing utensils, game cards, and down indicators. Go review that. Now, before you buy anything, and if you bought something already, that's fine. A lot of our TASO approved uniform vendors, who I highly encourage you to use, have starter packs and they know what you need. And so they're going to include those items in the starter pack. Sometimes they won't include the shorts, or you have to make a decision between the shorts and the pants. You're going to need both, because you're going to need pants to work chains no matter when, and you're going to need shorts to work sub-varsity through the end of September, and then you'll transition to pants. So you will need shorts, you will need pants. You also are going to need a TASO approved shirt, and you can only get that through your TASO vendor. So the good news is, next week, starting next week, we will be meeting in person back at Dallas College, Brookhaven campus. We are going to have a uniform vendor on site. So if you can make the class, I highly encourage you to come. The vendor will probably be set up at least by 6 o'clock, and will probably stay a little bit after the class. And this is great because now you can touch and feel the things. You can see what their starter package includes. You can try pants on or try shirts on. I've found that the sizes kind of align pretty naturally. They don't tend to run too small or too large, but there's nothing better than being able to try these uniforms on. So if you're going to order online, that's perfectly fine. Just go through the approved vendors. And then if you want to wait until next week, I highly encourage you to come to the class in person, and we will have a uniform vendor there to, again, take care of all your needs. And that will be a TASO approved vendor. So they'll have all the shirts and all the other items that are listed here in this new members guide, which I want to encourage you to read through. And it covers more than uniforms. It covers the Boxman program. How do I get games? What do I expect my first game? Things like that. So highly encourage you to read this document. All right, any questions in the chat around that? Let's see here. I'll try to read them out. I got an email from Frisco ID about some forms. Yeah, if you've been scheduled for some games from Frisco, they do require some extra forms. There's 1 or 2 school districts that will ask for you to fill out some paperwork. Go ahead and fill it out and follow the instructions and send it back in, especially if you plan on working any games in the Frisco ISD area. That includes doing chains on varsity games. So hopefully that answers your question, Calvin. If not, reach out to me afterwards. I think Keith has already addressed that as well. Box persons, yes, if you're on the chain crew, no matter what time of the year it is, you will always wear pants, not shorts. Shorts are only for sub-varsity on the field assignments through the end of September. Dwayne has asked, any recommendation for rain gear? So here's the issue with rain gear. I mean, I have not seen anybody who has approved rain gear that I would say that goes over your uniform, and has all the TASO stuff. But there are some vendors, and you can ask next week if you make the training, that do sell waterproof shirts that you can wear if you're expecting rain, and that does have all the TASO required patches and everything else on it. So you should be okay there. Okay, tonight we're going to talk about 2 topics. So if you remember, we spent the last 2 weeks, I took you through kind of part 1 of the NCAA rules definitions, rule 2, and then Alexi finished up the second half of that last week. So now we're going to jump into the coin toss and free kicks. And what you're going to start seeing is a lot of those things we talked about and we defined for you in rule 2 are going to come into play as we talk about coin toss, and more importantly, as we talk about free kicks. So let me start the presentations and get those shared for you. Okay, let's make this big screen. I'm hoping everybody can see this. So the coin toss, I know this sounds simple, oh, it's easy to go out there and flip, but there's actually a pretty regimented process that we follow. And I'm going to kind of give you, here's what the book says, the mechanics say, and then I'm going to give you the kind of the reality. And all of this really only applies to sub-varsity, not varsity, because frankly, you guys are only going to be working sub-varsity your first year. So when we talk about the coin toss, I just want you to know that we're here to kind of help familiarize you with what that means. It's also important that you read the NCAA rules, the exceptions, the TASO mechanics manuals, so you get a better understanding of that. So typically, and this is for sub-varsity as well, no later than 3 minutes before the game starts. That game clock is probably going to be running on the game board. You're going to see it counting down to kickoff. I highly encourage you to start before 3 minutes, below 3 minutes for sure. Just grab your captains and get them to midfield for the referee. And that might mean that if it's a 3-man crew, the line judge goes and gets one team, the head linesman goes and gets the other, or the referee goes and gets one and one of the other guys. It doesn't really matter as long as you get those captains to the midfield. I don't have a long speech for these guys. I usually ask them to shake hands and greet their opponents. You want the captains to stand with their back to their sidelines that their teams are going to be on. Typically, that means the home team is going to be standing with their back to the press box, and the visiting team captains are going to be standing with their back on the opposite side of the field from the press box. The visiting team always gets to decide. They get to call the initial heads or tails. One thing I like to do is I usually will show both teams, here's my coin, and depending on what coin it is, this is what's heads and this is what's tails. So there's no ambiguity. If you're using a US currency coin, that's pretty simple. A lot of folks have specialized flipping coins, and sometimes if it's not clear, it's always important to show the teams, both captains, this is what heads is, this is what tails is, before you ask the visiting team to make their call. So once you've asked the visiting team captain to make their call, and they say, let's say for the example, they say heads, I usually like to ask the home team captain, what did he call? And if they confirm it, then I go ahead and flip the coin. If they say, I don't know, or they say something wrong, I usually like to go back to the visiting team captain and have him say it a little bit louder so that they confirm it. We don't want that, I don't know, was it Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl moment or whatever it was where the referees, I think, either heard the wrong thing or got the wrong thing and they got the flip wrong. So the R then at that point was and the R is the referee will toss the coin and allow the coin to hit the ground. If warranted by field conditions, you may want to catch the toss. And the only thing that I would say there is if you're working on a grass field and it's extremely muddy and wet and it might get stuck in the mud, or if it's completely dry and it might go into a crack, you don't want that to happen. So typically we do let it hit the ground. The good news is we work most of our games on field turf, so this is not an issue. All right. So during the toss, each team shall remain in the area between the 9-yard marks. Remember, we talked about the definition of the 9-yard marks. That's typically the top of the numbers on the field if you're walking in from the sideline, and their team and then in their team area. Now, I'm just going to be brutally honest here. In sub-varsity, especially a 7th and 8th grade game, maybe even a 9th grade game, a lot of times you're doing the coin toss, and these guys have not even made it over to the sideline yet. You've got the captains, and you're doing the coin toss in the middle of the field. You'll probably have one team towards one end zone, another team towards one end zone, and they're finishing up their warm-up. So we don't get too strict on this in a sub-varsity game. The key really is, can I get my captains out, get a decision made so that we're not delaying the kickoff, and we don't really worry too much about or are they on the sideline in between their 9-yard marks? It's usually never an issue in sub-varsity. Obviously in varsity, you'll see that this is very regimented and this is followed pretty closely. Okay, so we've done the coin toss and somebody's won, and now we have to give the winner their options. So we're going to ask them, and this is by the book, and I'm going to show you, here's what the book says, and I'm going to tell you, here's how it normally goes. So somebody's going to choose which team's going to kick off. Or they can choose which goal line their team will defend, or they can choose to defer their selection to the second half. So the R will place his hand on the winning captain and explain their options and then obtain it. Then they will explain the loser's options to the team that didn't win the toss and obtain their choice. So should the winning captain choose number 3 above, i.e. to defer to the second half, then the R will indicate the winner of the toss by placing the hand on the captain's shoulder. And this is what we'll do before we finalize the whole toss process. We'll step clear of the captains, turn to the press box, and signal choice decline. So if you look in your rule book, kind of in the middle of the book, look what signal 10 is. It's like an incomplete pass signal, signal 10. And what we're telling the press box, we're really more telling the press box that this team has won the toss and they have deferred to the second half. That's what that signal and that whole process is for. And then we request the first half choice from the opposing captain. So if the home team won, they chose to defer. We're going to go through that process, do the incomplete signal towards the press box. Then we're going to turn to the visiting captain and say, you know, what do you want to do? And I think we all know what they're going to want to do. They're going to want to receive the ball. But then for the second half, so the first half is over. The loser of the toss or the winner who chooses option 3, if that team chose to defer, they are going to then choose what their options are in the second half. This sounds very complex. It's actually not. It's actually pretty smooth, and I'm going to kind of walk you through it here. Here's how it typically goes for sub-varsity. The winner of the toss will choose one of the following options. Do you want to receive? A lot of times they'll say, we want the ball or we want to defer. And that's pretty simple. Sometimes they'll mess up and say, we want to kick. Well, we're not going to let them mess up. We're going to say they really want to defer, because if they defer, the other team's going to take the ball and they are going to kick off in the first half. So we don't let them say we're going to kick, because they don't mean it in sub-varsity. What they mean is they want to defer. Okay, and then we're going to ask the captain of the team that will be kicking off, because if they defer or the other team decides to kick off, the other team gets to decide, you know, which way they want to kick, or which goal do you want to defend. So that's the way it typically goes. Captain that wins, I'll say, what's your choice? If they say receive, I say, okay. Then I look at the other captain. I say, which way would you like to kick off? Or which goal would you like to defend? That's how quick it goes. If the winning captain says, I want to defer, then I usually look at the opponent and say, well, you want to receive, right? And they say yes. Then I go back to the team that deferred and I say, which way would you like to kick off? It's that quick. It's that simple. We don't make it any more complex than that. And again, as I said, in the second half, typically we'll ask the team that received the ball in the first half, which way do you want to kick in the second half? Because if they receive the ball in the first half, they're not going to receive the ball in the opening kickoff in the second half. Not in a sub-varsity game. And it's very, very, very rare in a varsity game. That's how that process goes. So it's much simpler than when you read through the mechanics manuals. It's very regimented. It really comes down to, when they win, do you want to receive or do you want to defer? And from there, it's simple after that. So after all the selections have been made, we're going to place the captains in the position facing each other with the backs to the goal line they will defend. So if the team is, if the kicking team is going to be, we're going to line them up where they're back to their goal line, the receiving team with their back to their goal line. And then we're going to signal the choice of the captain by swinging a leg or simulating a kick or making a kicking motion while facing the same direction as the winning captain. All we're doing here, and you've seen it on TV, is indicating who has won the toss and what their decision is. This says if a choosing captain elects to defend a goal, point with both arms extended. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never had the winning captain say, we want to defend this goal. They're going to say, I want to receive or defer. But I'm just telling you that's in the mechanics manuals, just so you know it. Maybe it'll happen. I've not seen it in 12 years. Don't know if anybody, Keith or Alexi, if you guys have seen it, but it's not something that happens a lot. Then after the coin toss, we're going to meet at the center of the field. And then as officials, we're all going to talk about what was the result. And we're going to write down in our little clipboard and our note card who won the toss and who's kicking off. And then typically which direction they're kicking off. That's very important. Don't leave until you have that written down. Then we're going to proceed to our kickoff positions. We're going to well, we say clear the sidelines, ensure the sidelines are clear. Because remember, last week or the week before, we talked about that restricted area on the sideline. That's your area to work the game. We don't want teams, with their players pushed up there, the coaches in there, because you're going to be running in that area. All right, so if you want to review the coin toss mechanics, again, you can see them in the 3-man, 4-man, and 5-man crews in these sections. Glance through them. Your first couple games, I'm going to mention in your first few games, you're not going to be required to run the coin toss. You're not probably going to be the referee. So just pay attention to how it's done. It's pretty much going to go the way I described it. But, pay attention so that, when the time does come, maybe later in the season, you want to be a referee in a 7th or an 8th grade game or a 9th grade game, you kind of got to have a feel for how it works. But again, it's not too sounds complex. It's not too complex. Okay, I'll stop there. That's coin toss. Let me see what questions, if any, we have in the chat window. Okay, Gary Nichols has said he's hearing there are shortages getting game gear, especially shoes from Stripes. Plus, I order my uniform on and receive my shorts and flag day, nothing. So, shoes, there's no need to buy shoes from the uniform vendors. I mean, they'll have them and they're good shoes and you can certainly buy them. Our only requirement is that, your shoes be predominantly black. It can be black and white, but we don't want shoes that are majority white with black on them. So, don't feel like you can't go to a shoe vendor and buy them. But next week, I'm sure Connie from the uniform vendor that we'll have on site will have shoes that you can look at as well. So it's unfortunate. I haven't had that experience, Gary. Hopefully they're stocking up now and will be ready for the season. But if you guys hear anything else along those lines, feel free to shoot me an email. Okay, next topic. So after the coin toss, the next thing we're going to do is a free kick. So let's kind of transition into the free kick. Basically the same thing I said before, guys. We're going to kind of summarize free kicks. We're going to kind of quickly go through the mechanics. Really, you guys are going to have to study on your own to get the best learning experience. We're going to do our best in this presentation and we'll answer any questions, but highly encourage you guys, continue to read your rules, your UIL exceptions, and your TASO mechanics manuals. So the free kick is a kick by a player of the team in possession, pretty straightforward, while the ball is positioned on a tee or the ground, and it may be controlled by a teammate. So the tee cannot elevate the ball greater than 2 inches, and that's a UIL exception. I think in NCAA rules it's 1 inch, but the UIL allows for up to 2 inches. The ball can be positioned on the ground, contacting the tee. Haven't seen that yet, but if they're using a tee, that's the case. And then if it's after a safety, you also now get the added option of doing a punt. But most of your kickoffs, if they don't involve following a safety, have to be a place kick or a drop kick. And I've yet to see a drop kick, but you never know, it could happen. Most of them are going to be kicks off the tee. The kickoff, it starts each half and follows tries or field goals. So anytime the team scores a try or a field goal, they're going to be kicking it off unless they're obviously in extended periods. And again, it's not related to a safety. Again, it's going to have to be a place kick or a drop kick. Now for UIL games, I know the NCAA rule book that you're reading will say they kick off from the 35-yard line or the A-35. We kick off from the 40-yard line unless it's relocated by penalty. Now let's talk about, you're going to hear this a lot, restraining lines on a kickoff play. The kicking team restraining line is the yard line through which the most forward point from which the ball shall be kicked. So normally that's going to be, the ball is going to be placed on a tee at the A 40-yard line. Again, yes, let's don't assume we moved it by penalty, but that's the normal kickoff. That's going to be the kicking team's restraining line. Kicking team is team A. The receiving team restraining line is going to be 10 yards beyond that. So you always will have the kicking team lined up, and the kicking and the receiving team can line up no closer than 10 yards to the kicking team's restraining line. Again, unless relocated by penalty, the kicking team restraining line is its 40-yard line, and after a safety, it will be their 20-yard line, or the A20. Here's some formation requirements for free kick formations. All Team A players except the kicker must be no more than 5 yards behind their restraining line from the ready for play signal until the ball is kicked. The farthest they could be back would be a foot on the line 5 yards behind. So if they're kicking off from the A40, the farthest anyone other than the kicker could be back would be to have a foot on the A35 yard line. That's the farthest they can be back. They can be anywhere in between, but just note that as farthest back they can be is they have to have at least 1 foot on that A35, 5 yards behind. It doesn't mean they have to be that far back. What I'm saying is that's the farthest they can be back if they choose to be that far back. All Team A players must have been between the 9-yard marks after they're ready for signal play. So if you remember the definitions, the 9-yard marks, if you're standing on the sideline and you look and you see the numbers, typically the top of the numbers is 9 yards off the sideline. That's why we call it the 9-yard marks. And what they're saying here is once the ready for play signal is given by the referee, which means, okay, we're ready for you to kick off at any point, all of those players must have been between the 9-yard marks, the one on the other sideline and the one on their sideline. The reason for that is the rules are set up. They don't want any hideout players. They didn't want some guy standing 1 inch on the sideline, and blending into his team. They're forcing all of the Team A players, not Team B, but the Team A players inside those 9-yard marks. And then what happens is you'll see them break out and then now come inside those 9-yard marks. It gives Team B an opportunity to make sure that there's no hideout players. Okay, so when Team A kicks the ball, they must have had at least 4 players on either side of the kicker. That's at least. So what we're saying here is if they have less than 4 on either side of the kicker when the ball is kicked, we're going to have an illegal formation foul. Players must be behind the ball. The only exception is the kicker, and in some cases, if it's really windy, we might have a holder. They might have a foot just a little bit over the line. The kicker might plant a foot over the line just a little bit before he kicks the ball. They get that exception. But all the other players must be behind their restraining line when the ball is kicked. Now, it says make it big there. We do want to make it big. We're not going to get the ruler out. If somebody's a couple inches across and we're not talking an onside kick, we're probably not going to have an issue. We'll talk to them, but we're not going to have an issue, especially in sub-varsity. Now, when that kicker is going to put that ball down for his free kick, he can put it anywhere between the hash marks. He can never kick off with the ball outside the hash marks. The hash marks are those inbound spots, is what we consider the inbound spot. A lot of times we just call them the hash marks. The other thing too here is there's requirements on Team B. All Team B players must be inbounds and behind their restraining line when the ball is kicked as well. So there are some requirements on Team B as well. We don't see a whole lot of Team B offside, but that is a requirement that we certainly want to make sure, certainly in an onside kick play, that we want to make sure that both teams are onside. So let's look at what it looks like on the field when we talk about the restraining lines. Here's your normal, typical kicking team restraining line, the A40. 10 yards beyond that is going to be the receiving team restraining line. And this line that's 5 yards behind the A40 at the A35, that's the farthest back any Team A player can be other than the kicker. The kicker gets an exception. And to be that far back, we're not saying they can put a hand on the line. They have to actually physically have a foot on the line. They can have 2 feet, that's fine. Minimum requirement is 1. So let's look at a couple examples here. This is a picture of a free kick, and it looks like it did get moved to the A30. Might have been a penalty earlier, but this kicker is just starting to kick to contact the ball right here. And if we do a quick count, even from this angle, we can see that there's only 1, 2, 3 players on the, and we're assuming this guy is behind. If not, then that's even only 2 players. But so this would be an illegal formation foul as he's kicking this ball because we only have 3 players to the kicker's left. So remember, we have to have at least 4. You can have 5 and 5, you can have 6 and 4, but you must have at least 4. So that's what we're talking about having at least 4 on each side of the kicker. And you can see here that there's only 3 players to his left. Okay, another free kick formation. So as this kicker is kicking the ball, which means the ball has been made ready for play, we don't have any Team A players even close to being offside, so that's good. But one thing we do have is we have this player back here. And if you remember, once the ball's made ready for play, no other player other than the kicker can be more than 5 yards behind the line, the restraining line. So this guy is 7 yards behind. So this too would be an illegal formation foul. It's a live ball foul. We would throw that flag at the kick for this player being too far back. Now you're asking, well, why is that? The rule is really put in because if you were watch football kind of old school, I mean, I don't even say, 10, 15 years ago, there used to be guys getting these huge running head starts, so what they're trying to do is limit the amount of space that the kicking team members get for building up that head of steam. Most, I think statistically, the NCAA will tell you that a lot of the biggest injuries happen per capita, I would say, or per occurrence on kicking plays. So they're just trying to slow down the velocity of this kicking team so that when they do collide with people, it's not as forceful. That's really the rationale behind this rule. And you can see that circled there. This player here was committing a foul for being farther than 5 yards behind his restraining line. And I think we have this here is a video. I'm going to try to play it for you. So this looks like we probably had a safety, right? So it looks like we're kicking off from the A20. Let's just look at the formation. Right now, at the A15, we see a couple guys with their foot on the line. That's good. This guy over here down on the bottom doesn't have a foot on the line. We see 2 hands on the line. That's not allowed. Same here, same here, same here. So let's see what happens. Okay, I'm gonna stop it right. Oop, I would try to stop it there. Let's move it back because I wanted to get it just before they. Okay, so what happened here is looks like we had all of these guys. I'm not seeing a foot. Nobody has a foot on the line 5 yards behind, and to be that far behind, the requirement is they have to have at least 1 foot. So a lot of them have 2 hands, like a track meet, but this would be an illegal formation foul when this ball's kicked and be considered a live ball foul. So this is what I'm talking about. Even though they're 5 yards back, you can't have 2 hands on the line unless you have a foot on the line. And none of these guys appear, from what I can tell, to have a foot on the line. So this is a legal formation foul on free kick. Okay, another play here. Let's talk about this one. Let's look and see, how many people do we have? I'm going to stop it here, but how many people do we have to the right of the kicker here? Okay, I'm going to. Oh, it didn't let me stop. I don't know why. Another Ring Central issue, I'm sure. Let's go back. I'm going to stop it right here. So, as this official right here, he's on the kicking team restraining line. I'm assuming that's probably the visitor side. So that's probably the back judge. But I'm probably talking to these guys before I let it get this far. I'm going to say, hey, you guys need 1 more guy on this side. You guys need 1 more guy on this side to be legal. I'm right here. They can hear me. Obviously, somebody is probably lined up in the wrong position. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to listen to me, but I am going to try to talk them out of this foul. and let them know that right now that's legal formation before they kick it. And maybe this official did and they ignored him. Don't know. But we do try to talk them out of these fouls, even at the varsity level, especially on kickoffs like this. So once this ball's kicked, I don't know if a flag was thrown. I hope it was. Again, that would be treated as a live ball foul. Okay, now let's talk here. Let's talk about, remember, who's the only person that can be more than 5 yards behind the restraining line. So as they're lined up right now, these guys are as far back as they can be, which is good, and they all have a foot on the line. They're good. This guy's within the 5 yards, so he's good. But what we don't know is who's the kicker here. And the kicker is not anybody who's lined up to look like the kicker. The kicker is the person that actually contacts the ball to kick it. So let's watch this play. Okay, so they tried a little pooch kick. It didn't work. The receiving team got it, but we do have a foul for Team A here because we now have a non-kicker, this player back here, that was more than 5 yards behind the restraining line when the ball was kicked and after the ball is made ready for play. So this is a foul as well. Okay, another kicking play here. Let's watch this one. This one's going to be, remember we talked about when this ball is kicked, we don't want any Team A members beyond the restraining line. Now, we're not going to get too picky. Let's say if this ball was kicked right now and it's not an onside kick, yeah, this guy's got a foot just a little bit over. We'd probably let that go and talk to him. But you can see this guy is a full leg swing away from hitting this ball. And you can see that this guy, was probably a good yard and a half, maybe 2 yards. He's 3 yards now, but maybe a yard and a half, 2 yards beyond their restraining line. And we would definitely throw a flag for that. And most of the time, believe it or not, when that happens, it does happen with that outside guy. They're farthest away from the ball. They don't time it right. And it looks like he does have a flag down. So that's a good job by that official there for recognizing that that member or that player did get across too far across the line on the kickoff, and he threw his flag. Again, that's a live ball kicking team offside foul. Now, can Team B get offsides? Yes, it's extremely rare. We don't want to get picky about it. Again, when we're not talking about obvious onside kick situations, we have a little leniency here. And believe it or not, this issue here is this person right here in the middle appears to be standing right on the line, maybe just a little bit behind. What I don't like about that is this official here and this official here seem to be talking to somebody, and you're going to see it here when I run the play. And see again, see that member there? He's barely on the line. That's way too picky of a call. And what I see is this guy here, this team here is on this official sideline. He's starting to talk to the coaches, and I'm sure he's saying, "Hey, tell that guy in the middle to back up," or something along those lines. But what I don't like about that is he was talking to this guy when this ball was kicked and not paying attention. What if these guys would have actually tried an onside kick, and his focus is really talking to this official and not paying attention? So, there's a time to talk to the coaches, but once the play is imminent, we really have to be focusing on our on-field responsibilities. And there's a couple other things I'm going to point out here too. So they do throw a flag for the receiving team offside. And then what I don't like about this play, and even I don't care if it's 3-man crew, 4-man, 5-man crew, is some of the. I'm going to rewind it a little bit just so you can see it. I have no idea why I did that. So there seems to be a little bit of confusion here after the play. So what I don't like is that this official up here looks to be the one who threw the flag, and this is live ball action, and he's on the field. He should never be on the field as a sideline official over here. He should definitely be monitoring this, getting the forward progress spot, You can always kill the play afterwards. I don't even see him killing the clock here. I don't know who has forward progress. Maybe this official down here. But he's going to come in and report that he's got the receiving team offsides. Again, way too picky of a foul to call. We don't want to get that picky, especially in sub-varsity. And then there's some confusion here. I think the white hat thinks he's calling offside on the kicking team because, again, he's probably never seen the receiving team offsides, but they do get it corrected and the enforcement corrected. All right, another play here on kickoffs. Let's look at our formation. The ball's made ready for play. Let's stop. I don't know why it didn't stop. Very frustrating. I apologize. I'm not going to put it in full screen mode because it seems to not work too well. Okay, this is going to be an issue with this player right here. Again, he looks like he's got a foot on the line. This guy here is going to throw a flag for this person being offside. Way too picky. I'm not even calling that in a varsity game unless there's some kind of onside kick involved. Again, we treat that as a live ball, offside on the kicking team, or on the receiving team, sorry. This person threw a flag, and he's going to report to the referee that he had the receiving team offsides. Again, very, very rare you're ever going to have the receiving team offside. So I wanted to show you a couple plays there so that you know that we don't get that picky on a normal kickoff. We can talk to them, right? Next play, hey, make sure you back up about a half a foot just so you don't have a foot on the line. I mean, that usually takes care of the problem 99% of the time. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about player in and out of bounds. And we're going to kind of recap because we covered this in definitions. Remember that an out of bounds player is a player when a player is out of bounds when any part of that body is touching anything other than another player or a game official on or outside a boundary line. An out of bounds player who becomes airborne. So let's say he's out of bounds and he jumps up in the air to try to get back in bounds. He's still out of bounds until he touches the ground in bounds without having something simultaneously out of bounds. And then conversely, an inbounds player is a player who's not out of bounds. And if the player jumps from inbounds and maybe he's going out of bounds, he's still considered an inbounds player while he's in the air until he touches out of bounds. So let's talk about this. Team A on a free kick can get possession if they catch or recover the kick beyond Team B's restraining line. That's why that ball has to go 10 yards from where they kick it before they can actually catch or recover it. Or at any point, even before 10 yards, if a Team B player touches the kick, purposely touches the kick, and Team A recovers or catches it, then they can get possession. Or after the ball touches the ground, an official or anything beyond Team B's restraining line. So they kick it 20 yards downfield and it bounces high up in the air, and someone from Team A comes down and catches or recovers the ball. That's perfectly fine because it's gone beyond the restraining line and touched something. So even if it bounces back, it's fine as long as it's met that requirement of touching the ground, an official, or anything beyond. Usually you're not going to have to worry about the officials because we usually don't have anybody in that area. But from a rules perspective, it does say that. Any other touching by Team A is illegal touching. So let's say that ball does not go 10 yards and a Team A player touches it or recovers it or catches it. It's dead right there, and they've committed a violation. And assuming there's no penalties or anything else, Team A has the right to have the ball. Sorry, Team B has the right to have the ball put in play at that spot. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into penalty enforcement and violations and fouls, but they cannot touch the ball or catch or recover it unless it's met any of those three requirements that we talked about above. And I kind of got ahead of a little bit here. You know, that illegal touching is a violation that gives the receiving team the privilege of taking the ball at the spot of the violation. There are some things that come into play. If there's an accepted penalty for a live ball by either team, then that spot can go away. Or if there's illegal touching in Team A's end zone, we're going to ignore that. But again, we'll get into that more a little bit when we start talking about penalty enforcement in a couple classes from now. Force touching. So if a player is blocked by an opponent into a free kick, that is not considered, if that person is bound, not considered to have touched the ball. So if somebody blocks them into the kick, we're not going to consider them as having touched the kick. If an inbounds player touched by a ball either batted or illegally kicked by an opponent, that too is not deemed to have touched the ball. We don't see that a lot, but it is important to know whether someone touches the ball or whether they were forced into touching the ball. Makes a difference. If they were forced into it, we consider it as not being touched. All right, touching, continuing on this touching and recovering. This is very important about free kicks. So if a free kick is caught or received by the recovered by the receiving team, the ball continues in play, just like we see on a normal kickoff. They kick the ball off, the receiver catches it, and he takes off running. That's all that's saying. Now, again, if it's caught or recovered by the kicking team, the ball becomes dead, and that's it. I don't care where, if the status of the ball is still a kick. If the kicking team ever gets possession of it, then we're blowing the play dead, and then it's going to be um, the receiving team's ball at that spot, unless the kicking team is in legal possession, and they would be in legal possession if they satisfied any of those 3 requirements we went over on the previous slide. Now, let's say a team A player and a team B player kind of possess the ball at the same time, and they're in joint possession at the end of the play. We're always going to award that to the receiving team. And if a free kick untouched by Team B touches the ground on or behind Team B's goal line, then it becomes dead. It's a touchback for Team B, and it's going to be first down for them at the B25. So here's the scenario I want you to think about. The kickoff sails all the way to the end zone, and the receiver is in the end zone. If he catches the ball in the end zone, unless he takes a knee or never brings the ball out and the ball's declared dead there, um, we've got a live ball. So let's say if he catches the ball in the end zone, he takes a knee, we're going to kill it. That's fine. We're never going to start the clock. Let's say he catches the ball and then runs out of the end zone. Well, then we're going to wind the clock the minute he comes out of the end zone. Let's say he catches the ball in the end zone and he's running around in the end zone, running around, and he gets tackled. We still have a touchback. As long as he does not bring that ball into the field of play and the ball's declared dead there in Team B possession, it's going to be a touchback. Now, on the flip side, if he is in the end zone and the kick is coming down and he muffs it, it goes through his arms, hits in the end zone and rolls somewhere, well, now we don't have a touchback because it was touched by a Team B player before it touched in the end zone. So that's the important thing to remember. If it comes down into the end zone untouched by Team B and hits in the end zone, it's a touchback. If he muffs it in the end zone and it hits in the end zone, then it's not a touchback automatically. Now, if he muffs it and it rolls around the end zone, and he falls on it, we got a touchback. But those are 2 different scenarios. So as long as it's untouched by Team B and hits in the end zone, we're shutting it down no matter what. Now, a free kick at rest. If a free kick comes to rest inbounds and no player attempts to secure it, the ball becomes dead and belongs to the receiving team at that dead ball spot. Very, very rare scenario, but if it does occur, it's going to go to the receiving team. I'm going to stop there and check and see if we have any questions. Looks like everything's being addressed. Keith, I don't know if we got you unmuted or not. I don't know what your username is in the participant list. Okay, well, we'll just continue. Okay, let's do some video. So we kind of talked about who can touch, when they can touch, what happens when we have untouched balls in the end zone. Let's play a couple of video clips and kind of talk this through here. Okay, let's just kind of stop it right there. We can't see every player, but right now I think everything looks good, assuming this guy that's back on the 30-yard line here is actually going to be the guy that kicks the ball. Everyone has a foot at least on the line or inside the line, so doesn't look bad so far. Let's let this play out and see what happens. Oh, I think we're going to talk about players in and out of bounds here. So this ball bounces. You can see it bounce somewhere around the 20-yard line, and a kicking team player slides in and touches it. I'll replay it a couple times, but I think what we're talking about here is player inbounds or player out of bounds. And we don't have the best angle at this view. I think there was a better angle in this video I saw where they did show it down the line, and I'll kind of play for you what happens here. So this pooch kick is made, and it's actually a pretty darn good kick. And it's kind of about, it's up in the air. It's coming over here by the 20. This guy's trying to run up. If I'm the referee or this official here, I'm probably going to be a couple yards behind him. I don't like getting that close to him. But what happens is this ball hits in bounds and it bounces backwards. And you're going to see a kicking team player. The kicking team is in the white jerseys come down here. And what happened is the kicking team player is out of bounds when he touches the ball. And you can kind of see it right there. This player is out of bounds when he touches the ball, which makes it a free kick out of bounds. Now, I think what happens is they end up going live and they end up getting the wrong call in the field, but they did correct it after replay. This was a state championship game, so they do have replay in state championship games. So again, this official is in good position. Very difficult play to officiate. He had a lot to look at there. I can see how he might have missed that the kicking team player was out of bounds when he touched the ball, but that would have been a kick out of bounds for sure because he was out of bounds. Now, had that kicking team player went out of bounds and then come back in bounds and touched it, then we would just have a flag down and it would still be considered a live ball foul. But given he was out of bounds when he touched it, it's killing the play because it's a free kick out of bounds. And we're going to talk about the penalty enforcement for that in a minute. Now let's talk about, this is a pretty good play here, which shows, when can team A legally have possession of the ball? And remember, one of the things is as long as they kick the ball and don't touch it until at least it goes 10 yards, then potentially they could be in possession of it at the end of the play. So watch this play here. So they've made the ready for play. These players have now moved out outside the 9-yard marks, which is fine. You notice you got a player right down here on the sideline, and I want you to watch him. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with it. Now he can't advance it. He can catch it, and he did. What they did was just a nice little pooch kick over here. It's more than 10 yards. This was the restraining line for the receiving team was the 50, and this player caught the ball. There was no early blocking. There was no kick catch interference. This is going to be the kicking team's ball at the B48-yard line, 1st and 10. It's a good play. I'll play it again for you one more time. And just to let's think about our formations here. We got a kicker here in the middle field. Looks like we have 4 guys there on the top. So as long as they stayed there when this ball was kicked, we're perfectly fine because we have at least 4 on each side. Looks like they caught the receiving team pretty good off guard. All right, let's look at another play here. All these plays are going to be kickoff related. So we have a pooch play. This was a lot like that one play where we had a ball that bounced backward. This is a tough one to rule on. So we have to, as an official on the sideline, we have to see where did that ball hit in bounds, and it appears to hit in bounds and bounces kind of up and backwards. And now you've got, your kicking team players coming down here. Let's play it one more time. So the ball had clearly gone more than 10 yards. So can the kicking team recover it or catch it? Absolutely. Can they advance it? No, it's still a kick. So wherever they get possession, we're going to kill the play, and they're going to get the ball at that spot. Ball bounces kind of up a little bit backwards. So now you can't see it. We don't have the right angle here, but you're going to see the kicking team player jumping up in the air. So he's an inbounds player still in the air. And the question is, for that official to rule, did he get any body part down in bounds? Because he has to be able to establish inbounds before he went out of bounds. And we're not going to see it in this angle here. So let's say he did come down and got a foot in before he fell out of bounds. That's going to be the kicking team's ball at that spot. However, let's say he did come down and he had 1 foot touching out of bounds before anything else touched inbounds. What we're going to have there is a free kick out of bounds. That's going to be a foul against the kicking team. We can't establish what really happened here with the angle of this play, but I just wanted to kind of highlight, these are the things that can happen on free kicks that we've got to be able to make rulings on. Another free kick play here. Well, this might be the same one. Sorry. This is the one I meant to play. Okay, this is an onside kick. We're going to get some good looks at this, so don't worry about this angle. So remember, the ball's got to go 10 yards before any kicking team player can touch it. Team A, the kicking team, also cannot make any blocks before the ball goes at least 10 yards or when they can legally touch it. What you're going to see here is a kicker is just dribbling this ball down and actually is going to make an actual legal recovery of the ball. He's not touched it until right there. So it looks like he's touching the ball at about the 11 yards after he kicked it. Nobody's made any illegal blocks. This is going to be dead at the spot of recovery, but it will be the kicking team's ball, 1st and 10. We're not going to give him the slide. We're going to give him to where he recovered it. That was a nice play. Here's another look at it. Actually, looks like he bobbled the ball a little bit. Probably would give him an extra yard, but still going to be Team A's ball. As a well-executed onside kick. Okay, so other fouls by the kicking team here. And something to note about penalties for all fouls by the kicking team other than kick-catch interference during the free kick play may be enforced at the previous spot with the kick being repeated, so we would back them up the penalty yardage, and they would re-kick. Or if Team B is going to put the ball in possession after the free kick, they can enforce the penalty from that spot. So Team B gets that option of deciding, do they want to back them up and re-kick, or do they want to take it at the spot where they have the ball and then add the incremental yardage on top of that. So a Team A player who goes out of bounds during a free kick play, and you remember, we introduced the definition of what a free kick play is last week, may not return inbounds during the kick. However, if blocked out of bounds and they return immediately, we're fine. They can return, and then also, once the kick play is over, i.e. the receiving team has caught the ball and is returning it, then they can also return inbounds and there is no foul. If they do this, this is a live ball foul, and it's 5 yards from the previous spot or the succeeding spot where it belongs to Team B. This doesn't happen a lot, but I showed you a video of where a player was out of bounds. He didn't go out of bounds and come back in, though. But so you definitely, as an official, certainly on the sideline, have to be alert for this. And as I mentioned earlier, no Team A player may block an opponent until Team A is eligible to touch a free kick ball. Again, this is another 5 yard foul from the previous spot or the succeeding spot where it belongs to Team B. All right, let's look at another kick play example here. Free kick play. Got a pooch kick here. All right, we're talking about, this is going to be an example of Team A players going out of bounds and returning inbounds during the kick. So I'm going to try to slow it down. The kick is still in bounds, and you see number 8 went out of bounds on his own, and now he's coming back in bounds. The minute he came back in bounds, that's a foul. So we would have had a flag down for that. Now, I think the bad news here was, too, that they awarded the ball to the kicking team, but that would have been a foul because that kicking team player went out of bounds on his own and came back in on his own, and it was still during the kick. There was no return on this play. That would be a foul for against the kicking team. Probably hard for that official to catch it. Maybe this official down here could have helped out, but nonetheless, it still is a foul. Okay, we talked about on that last slide about when can Team A legally block? They can't legally block until they can legally touch the kick. So let's watch this play. This was in a state championship game a couple years back. We're going to have an onside kick here. It's going to come over to the left over here. I don't remember the exact players involved, but you'll see it as it plays out. So it's going to come. This kick's going to come over here towards the bottom of the field. I think this was Lake Travis and Allen, or Westlake and Allen, if I recall right. So you can see he's one bounced it. Okay, so he's one bounced it. It's not gone 10 yards yet. This player is running up to catch the ball, but you can see that he is blocked by this player. So nobody right now on Team A, since this ball has only gone about 8.5 yards, it's only probably 7.5, 8 when this guy was contacted, can legally touch the ball. And they also legally cannot block an opponent. This opponent did not block him. The kicking team player blocked him. So we're actually going to get a foul for this, which is good. The only problem we had on this play was they enforced the penalty wrong, but Team B did end up getting the ball. They just had the enforcement spot wrong. So, yeah, that's not good, but at least they didn't give it back to Team A. Okay, free kick out of bounds. I talked about that. So whenever the kick goes out of bounds, it's not touched by a Team B player who's in bounds, and it goes out of bounds. Team A can touch it in bounds, or not, and it goes out of bounds, and a Team B player has never touched it while they're in bounds. We're going to have a flag down at the spot where the ball goes out of bounds. And the penalty options for this are going to be when that kick goes out of bounds between the goal lines, it's going to be, there's 3 options. Usually you're only going to give 2 to the coach because one of them doesn't make sense. So the option is Team B gets the ball 30 yards beyond the kicking team restraining line, and that's going to be their ball, 1st and 10. Or they can get it, they can back the kicking team up 5 yards and make them re-kick. Or they can get the ball plus 5 yards from the out of bounds spot. So usually you're going to pick the 2 options here that make sense. So obviously if the ball is kicked out of bounds at the B 5 yard line, we're probably not going to ask them if they want to take the ball at the plus 5 yards from the out of bounds spot, because 30 yards beyond the restraining line is a much better position of the ball. So that's what I'm talking about, is usually one of these 3 options falls away from common sense. So when you go talk to the receiving team coach, you're going to present him the 2, hey coach, you want to back him up 5 yards and make him re-kick, or do you want to take the ball at the whatever yard line is going to be the most advantageous? Interestingly enough, let's say a Team B player is straddling the sideline, and they have 1 foot inbounds and 1 foot out of bounds, and the ball comes in and they touch the kick while it's still live. Interesting enough, that's still a foul for the kicking team because he's an out of bounds player and the ball's out of bounds. You see some smart teams know how to take advantage of this. Green Bay being one of them. I've seen a couple college teams. I think Wisconsin's done it as well. Now, it's no foul if a free kick is caught by an airborne inbounds Team B player. So forget the straddling part. Let's say a Team B player is running towards the sideline, jumps up in the air, catches the free kick, and comes down out of bounds. Well, he touched the ball while he was technically an inbounds player. Therefore, it's not a free kick out of bounds at that spot. All right, so let's stop there and let me get to the chat window and see if we have any questions. Give me a second. Sorry about the delay there, just trying to navigate this. Okay, couple questions here. If a ball hits in the field of play, then rolls into the end zone, is the play dead? Yes, if you're talking about the ball here, if you're talking about a kick, if it hits at the 5 yard line and rolls into the end zone untouched by Team B, then it's immediately dead and it's a touchback. So that's why I said the rule simply states that if an untouched free kick hits the ground in the end zone, then it's immediately a touchback. Hopefully that answers the question for you. Okay, I know we're running a little short on time here, so I'm going to try to speed things up. Okay, we talked about the free kick out of bounds and what those penalty options are. Let's talk about kick catch interference. This is another big foul that we definitely want to make sure that we catch on all free kicks. So, and here's what it says. So if a Team B player is in position to catch a kick, they must be given an unimpeded opportunity to catch it. So when in doubt, this is a foul. And it's a foul if before the receiver touches the ball, a teammate player enters that area defined by the width of the receiver's shoulders extending 1 yard in front of him. And this is another example, guys. I wish I was in front of you in a classroom where I could physically, Keith and Alexi and I could get up there and we could demonstrate for you what that area is. But just stand up, put your arms straight out in front of you, parallel to the ground. That area there is considered the restricted area. So it's a foul if the kicking team contacts the potential receiver before or even simultaneous to touching the ball. It's not a foul if if it was a result of them being blocked into the receiver. Now that protection ends when the kick touches the ground or any player of Team B in the field of play or end zone. So once it hits the ground or any Team B player, that protection's gone. Doesn't mean you can still personal foul somebody, but there's no more protection. Now, another thing about this was changed about 4 or 5 years ago. It used to be that this protection was kind of, while the ball's in the air. You see a lot more kickers now driving the ball right off the tee immediately in the ground, and it creates this huge pop up. We ignore that ball has touched the ground in that scenario. So the protection continues if, when kicked, the ball is immediately driven to the ground, strikes the ground once, and goes into the air the manner of a ball kicked directly off the tee. So we have to be paying attention to how that ball's kicked off the tee. If they do a quick drive it into the ground and it pops up real high, we consider that just as if it's never touched the ground. And so that way we still get protection for the receiving team. Now, this is a live ball foul, and it's enforced 15 yards from the spot of the foul. Okay, that's important to note. Here's a couple quick examples. Okay, so ball's kind of gone 10 yards, but here's the thing. This receiver here, since this ball was kicked up into the air, he has an unimpeded opportunity to catch this ball. He has that area in front of him, remember, where the arm's out? He does not have to signal fair catch. He still gets a unimpeded opportunity to catch that kick. This ball had not hit the ground, and if he's standing there waiting to catch it and somebody runs in front of him within those arms length from the shoulders out, we're going to have a foul for KCI. Now, fortunately, I think the receiving team recovers this ball, so it didn't come into play. But you could have had a KCI foul here. KCI short for kick catch interference. It's close, but when in doubt, it's a foul, right? Okay, a couple more examples. Sorry. This one was really close as well. I mean, it was hard to determine if, those guys got within that arm's length in front of him. But this is where our antenna should be up. We see a short kick like this. That's almost simultaneous too. I don't have a problem with that not being a foul, but if a foul is thrown there, I think you could certainly justify it as well. There wasn't a real violent hit or anything afterwards either. So, and the receiver didn't muff the ball or anything. So I'm okay with that. But again, when in doubt, it's a foul. A couple more on this. Okay, we're always looking at our formations here. Looks like we've got 4 on one side, 6 on the other. We got a kick that's pooched up. Okay, the ball's gone more than 10 yards, right? Oh, well, the kicking team can now recover it. Well, they still have to give, since the ball's not hit the ground, they have to give an unimpeded opportunity, whether there's a fair catch or not, to catch this ball. And they did not. That guy ran right in front of him and caught the ball. Okay, another play. I'm going to try to move a little bit quicker here because I know we're at the top of the hour. Now, this is a combination play. We have a legal fair catch, and we're going to see that simultaneous to this receiver catching the ball, or right before, he gets pretty well smacked. And we do have a flag. Now, one thing I don't like about the reaction of the official here, continue to officiate the play. Throw your flag. We don't know who's got the ball. He's not even paying attention. Hopefully someone else is. Don't come on field. I would throw my flag, and then I would continue to officiate and look at what's going here, and then kill the play. And then you can kind of report to the referee when it's appropriate to do so what the foul was. Okay. There's also some other fouls by the receiving team. Illegal wedge. I'll kind of go through these kind of quickly. Really, this has been simplified. You cannot have two players on the receiving team who will intentionally align shoulder to shoulder for the purpose of blocking. I don't know how old you guys are, but we used to have what was called the wedge blocker, the wedge buster on the kicking team. He's the guy that would go down there and just crazily jump into the wedge of about 4 or 5 guys that are trying to create this wedge block for the receiving team. Again, kickoff plays are some of the most dangerous plays for injuries. So they've actually pretty much outlawed this. And the only time that you're not going to throw on this is if it's made from an obvious onside kick formation, or we have a touchback, or a free kick out of bounds, or a fair catch. This is another 15-yard spot foul as well, or wherever 15 yards from where the ball belongs to team B if it's behind the spot. The kicker protection. The kicker of a free kick may not be blocked until he's advanced 5 yards. This is to save, the kicker needs a little time to recover after making the kick. We don't want somebody from the receiving team coming in and blowing him up. So as long as he's gone 5 yards, he should at that point be able to see anything that's coming at him. This would be a 15-yard foul as well. Here's an example of the wedge. I'll show it to you real quickly. They're going to circle it for you. We get a couple up close looks on this, so I know this is a little far away right now. You can see there you have probably 3 guys that formed a wedge. Now you can't even have 2, so you see it better there. They even holding arms, I think. So that's what we're talking about by an illegal wedge. Good news is this is a foul that we rarely see, but nonetheless we do have to be prepared on all kickoffs to be able to look out for it. All right, let's talk about some other common fouls on free kicks. Blocking below the waist occurs a lot. Illegal block in the back. Offside, we talked about it. We want to make it big. We don't want to be too technical. We're going to see a lot of face masks against the holder. We're going to see some holdings. And then blindside blocks is another one now that's illegal that we see a lot on free kicks. Let's talk about fair catch real quick. So we're going to refresh. We talked about this last week. A valid signal gives protection. An invalid signal does not give protection, but KCI rules still apply, and they can still be personal fouled. So we need to be careful. Any waving signal prevents an advance of the ball by either team. So if you, a lot of times you'll see that receiving team kind of like waving their hands down by the waist going, get away, get away. Well, once they recover the ball, we're going to kill it because that's an invalid signal and we're just going to shut it down. If they do advance the ball after they make a fair catch, we're going to give them a couple steps, but if they run for 15 or 20, we might give them a delay game foul. But don't be too picky on that either. You can shade your eyes. That's not really considered waving. If the receiver puts his hand up above his head and he's kind of shading his eyes, he's not waving, we're fine with that. And a player of Team B was made a valid or invalid signal for fair catch and does not touch the ball, they're not allowed to block an opponent during that down. So they can't signal fair catch and then block somebody. If you get a completed fair catch inside the 25-yard line, the result will be that Team B gets to move the ball all the way up to the B25. So if they complete a fair catch on the B5-yard line, they're going to get the ball first and 10 at the 25. Now, if the fair catch signaler muffs a kick, they must be given an opportunity to catch the muff kick to complete the catch. So if they muff it and that ball's still kind of in their vicinity where they might be able to, it pops up and they can still catch it, they still get an opportunity to catch it. If it hits their chest and bounces 15, 20 yards away, well, that's a different story. So clock management on free kicks, so starting and stopping the clocks. The game clock will get started on an official signal when the ball is legally touched. And the key there is legally touched in the field of play or when it crosses the goal line after being touched legally by Team B in its end zone. I kind of talked about some of those scenarios earlier. So what we would do is we would wind the clock when it's touched by Team B in the field of play, or when it's touched or carried by Team B out of the end zone. So let's say they catch the ball in the end zone and now they take off running on the return. Once they cross the goal line, we would wind it. We do not start the game clock if Team A touches the kick or even recovers the kick. And we do not start the clock on a fair catch. However, we will stop the game clock when the ball is dead by rule. And in some cases, you might be doing the stop clock signal even though it was never started. That's perfectly fine, and that's what we want you to do. Okay, if Team B player takes a knee upon catching or recovering the kick, he's down. Again, the play is over. Even if he simulates taking a knee, we're going to treat it as if he's down. And that's not a foul. We're just going to kill the play. All right, let's talk about some of the mechanics. We're almost done here. So in a 3-man crew, you're only going to have the referee, the head linesman, and the line judge. So as you're getting the ball ready to the kicking team, the line judge is going to provide the ball and instructions to the kicker. And usually all I say to the kicker is, hey, if the ball starts falling off the tee before you get there to kick it, just stop, we'll reset it. And then I also point down to the referee and I say, do not kick the ball until that man down there blows the whistle. And I keep it short and sweet. So once the ball and the instructions have been given to the kicker in 3-man, the head linesman, I got to go into full screen mode. The head linesman and the line judge are going to proceed to their sidelines, their respective restraining lines. The line judge is going to be on the kicking team restraining line. The head line judge will be on the receiving team restraining line. And you're going to see here, the referee will be on the goal line behind the nearest receiving team receivers. If he has to go a little bit deeper in the end zone, he will. Now, what changes when we go to 4-man? We're adding an umpire. So now what changes is the umpire is going to provide the ball and the instructions to the kicker. And the referee and the line judge are going to be all the way down on the receiving team's goal line. And the umpire will be on that kicking team restraining line. And the headline judge, again, is on the nice thing about 3, 4, and 5-man, that headline judge is always on the receiving team restraining line. Never changes. Okay, so now let's say we have, let's say we think there might be an onside kick. So the game situation seems to be that maybe the kicking team might try an onside kick. So what we do here is, in this case in 4-man, we move that line judge up off the goal line onto the receiving team restraining line so that he can help rule on, did that ball go 10 yards before it's touched. The umpire stays in the normal position. The referee goes to the middle of the field on the goal line. And guys, this is just simulating what you should be reading in your mechanics manuals. This is going to tell you the exact same thing. I only throw this in here because I still run across this. This is a formation that seems to be used by a lot of experienced officials. It's not an official mechanics, and we shouldn't be using it. I'm not saying that you should get into arguments with anybody if they ask you to do it, but just note that the diamond formation, that's what the nickname of this is not a valid TASO mechanic, and we should not be using it. And while this does is, again, in 4-man crew, you have the line judge on the kicking team line, the headline judge on the receiving team line, and the umpire standing behind the kicker in the middle of the field. We don't want to do this, guys. It's not an approved mechanic. Okay, now let's go up to 5-man. Let's see what changes here. Now we've added a back judge. So we now have the umpire and the back judge. And the back judge in this case is going to give the instructions to the kicker and hand the ball to him. And then he's going to back off and go to the kicking team's restraining line. The umpire is already there across the field. Again, like I said, 5-man crews. The headline judge is on the 50-yard line, the receiving team's training line, and you have your referee and line judge all the way back on the goal line. Now, if we think that there might be a onside kick in 5-man, we have what's called short kick mechanic. And this is where we're going to move that line judge up again to the receiving team restraining line to help rule on who's touching and who might recover the ball after it's gone 10 yards. Back judge does the same thing. Just puts us 4 guys up there and to box it in and to be able to better rule on any kind of potential onside kick. Okay, we also have what's called an alternate short kick mechanic. This is where we're not expecting an onside kick, but we see a lot of teams doing these really high pooch kicks down to about the 30 to the 20-yard line. So to kind of help officiate that, we're given the option in the TASO mechanics to move either the referee up or the line judge up to about the 25. And that's all you see here is that this line judge is now moved up to the 25-yard line. The R is staying on the goal line. And then the back judge gives the ball and provides instructions. Alternatively, you could reverse that. The referee could go up 25 and the line judge would say on the goal line. We use this primarily for pooch kicks. You're probably not going to see this in sub-varsity games, so you're probably not going to have to worry about it. But I did want to just mention to you that it is an option in 5-man crews. Okay, pre-kick duties. In 3-man crew, the line judge is going to be counting the kicking team number of players. You're also, as I mentioned, taking the ball out to the kicker and explaining the instructions to him, and to only kick it once the R is given the ready for play signal. And point out that referee on each free kick. Say, that's the referee down there. Don't kick it until he blows a whistle. The head linesman and line judge are going to check their sidelines to make sure that all non-players are out of the restricted area. Very important. You do not want to collide with somebody while you're officiating a free kick play, because you're typically going to be running up and down that sideline. And then you also want to make sure that all your teammate players have complied with the 9-yard mark requirement. They cannot go inside the 9-yard marks until the ball's been made ready for play. Now, the referee and the head line judge are going to be counting the receiving team players. So they're the ones responsible for ensuring that we have no more than 11 players on the receiving team. And once we're done doing all that and we're ready for a kickoff, everyone will raise their hand straight up, and that lets the R know that he can blow the ready for signal play. Now, in 4-man crew, we're not going to go into 5. We're just going to cover 3 and 4-man. The U, the umpire, now is added into the mix. He's going to explain to the kicker everything that the line judge did in the 3-man crew. And the U and the H are going to count the kicking team players to make sure that they have no more than 11. And they're also checking their sidelines and those 9-yard mark requirements. And then the other 2 officials, I'm sorry, that's a mistake there. That should say the in the second, it should say the U and the L, not the U and the H count the kicking team players. I'll fix that before we post it. And then the R and H are counting the receiving team number of players as well, and also doing what they can to clear their sidelines. And then once they're ready, they'll raise their hands. The referee will blow the ready for play signal, and we can have a kickoff. After the kick, when the ball in 3-man crew, when the ball's kicked, we're going to ensure 4 or more players on each side of the kicker. That's their responsibilities. So you can see the mechanics here are kind of interweaving with the rules. You have keys you have to look for. You have to pay attention to, and that's what your mechanics are going to tell you to do. In this case, you want to make sure that you have no more than 4 players. You have at least 4 players, sorry, on each side of the kicker when the ball's kicked. You're going to be watching for unnecessary roughness on the kicker or the holder. Remember, they get 5 yards before they can be contacted. You're also going to transition to watch for illegal blocks and as I mentioned before, action on that kicker until 5-yard requirement has been met. Since the line judge and the headline judge are up on the receiving team line and the kicking team line, they're going to watch for short kicks and who's touching the ball and who's legally and illegally recovering the ball. You're looking for offsides on either team. And you also want to be in position to take the runner if the ball is advanced beyond the B35. So if that returner starts running the ball back, once they transition to about the B35, you're going to be covering forward progress. And then everybody, all 3 of you officials, are going to be watching for team A blocks prior to team A becoming eligible to touch the ball. Make sure they don't block early. You're going to mark the out of bounds spot when the kick and flight or rolling goes out of bounds. You could even beanbag it if you need to. Otherwise, you're going to flag it. So give the signal starting the game clock when the kick is first touched by Team B. This is what I talked about before. So if it's legally touched by Team B in the field of play or carried out of the end zone, we're going to wind the clock. I'm not going to go through everything here. I'm just kind of highlighting for you what you're going to see when you start reading the mechanics manuals. It's kind of telling you where you need to be and what your keys are and what your responsibilities are. For the referee, if the kick goes deep, you're going to retreat to a position to observe actions, involving the goal line. Goal line is very important, as well as the end line. You're going to watch for any kind of trick plays where they might have a handoff or a crisscross on a free kick, and be able to rule appropriately on that. Including everybody should be able to rule for illegal handoffs. No handoffs can be done forward. They all have to be backwards on a free kick. I'm not going to go through the 4-man mechanic. These will be in the slides in the presentation, but you need to be reading your mechanics manuals and talking, and it covers, it has a whole section on free kicks, and it tells what each official is supposed to do. So the referee, the head line judge, the line judge, and the umpire tells them exactly what they're supposed to be doing before the kick, after the kick, etc. Nice thing about a four-man crew, you got one extra set of eyes as an official out there to help you officiate. And I always like to say you basically got 88 arms and legs to watch, and that's a lot. And so the more officials you have in general, the better it's going to be for you to be more efficient at it. Okay, so for free kicks in four-man crew, so this is the way it's going to look. We have this kind of concept of, as the runner progresses up here, the referee is going to help on forward progress. And as we approach that 30, 35-yard line, we're going to kind of transition that to the head linesman and the umpire, who basically will have all forward progress all the way to the goal line. And then you have the referee and the line judge cleaning up behind the play as they're coming down as well. I'll show a quick play here. I don't know what was, there was nothing unique about that I saw, unless somebody's offsides, but let's just talk about this in a 3 and 4-man crew. You're at the top of the, this person, you're not going to have this official here on the 40. What you're going to have is your line judge down here at the bottom in a 3-man crew, and your head linesman's going to be down here closer to the 50 in your, for the receiving team restraining line. So, you got a lot of stuff to be watching here. So now we got the ball being caught. And then we're going to transition to watching for illegal blocks and then getting the forward progress. Here's another play. This is kind of a weird play here. Actually, I know what I wanted to show about that play. There's something unusual about this play, and I don't know what happened, but if you look, we have nobody on the kicking team restraining line. Now, I don't know if the other guys are on the receiving team. I don't see anybody 10 yards. So this ball's at the 35. So we must have had maybe a penalty or something, or this was a college game where these guys got lost. But these guys are both 5 yards away from where they should be. This is the restraining line right here. This is where the ball's at. This official should be here, and this official down here should be over here. I have no idea what happened here. They somehow got confused. I don't know if the kicker put the ball in the wrong spot, but if he did, that's a foul because you're not allowed to move the ball back. It has to be on the restraining line. So chalk that one up to Twilight Zone. I have no idea what happened on this play. And it looks like our other officials were also 5 yards off as well. If you just scroll ahead here, these guys are also down here when they should have been here. Hopefully that doesn't happen to any of you guys. So let's, here's a bizarre play on a kickoff. I just want to kind of play it for you. Kickoffs, kicking plays are some of the hardest, weirdest, most unusual plays you're going to see. And this is a good example of that as well, where we're going to get a return, a very long return, and then you're going to see somebody ended up with the ball running it back for a touchdown. So everything starts good. We're on the clock. Good job there. We're returning. We've got the official trailing the play up here. You can see him coming in behind right here. We got this guy. I wish he wouldn't have came in so quick, because what you're going to see here is this player here has the ball. This was not the player that caught the free kick. Good job for the back judge here, hustling down, signaling touchdown. This was actually a game I was in, and we have no idea how this player got the ball. When we played the huddle video back, we couldn't really tell. We ruled it a touchdown because we had no other evidence. But this pile is moving forward. You can see their forward progress is not stopped. Somehow the ball transfers to this guy. How was it fumbled and he grabbed it? Was it handed? Nobody knows. But it's, just my point here is be ready that kicking plays are crazy, and you can always expect the unexpected on them. So thought I'd share that with you. Here's just a quick reference to where you can find the free kick mechanics in your mechanics manuals. And then last, guys, before we go to the chat window, myself, Keith, and Alexi, we're here to help. Here's our contact information. If you are going through this material again, or if you're just studying the rules on your own, looking through mechanics manuals, and you run up against something that you don't understand, give us a call, send us an email. I think most of you guys know a lot of people have already emailed me. I try to be as responsive as I can and answer your questions. So, and I know Keith and Alexi will as well. So, I want to encourage you guys to certainly reach out if you have any questions so that we can get them answered. I'm going to go to the chat window now, and I don't see any new chats. I hope that's a good sign. But a couple things I think I've already mentioned. You know, the uniforms next week, we're going to be in person. You'll get emails on this. We're going to have a uniform vendor. We'll talk about the uniform again a little bit more next week. And then, but next week, we're going to be getting into plays from scrimmage. We're going to talk about running plays, for example. So we've completed the coin toss, we've completed the free kick. Now somebody's going to be putting the ball in play. We're going to talk about running plays next week, and then we'll talk about passing plays and scrimmage kick plays after that. So that's the topic for tonight. If nobody else has any questions, I'll let you go. Thank you. I know we went about a half hour over. I apologize. Hopefully you found this productive, and I will send out links once this is posted to YouTube. Thanks, everybody.